what first got you into music? What were your early inspirations and influences?
Well, I was kind of an only child. I wasn't really an only child because I had a sister who was 15 years older than I was. And so she'd been brought up as an only child, and then I was brought up as an only child. It was kind of odd, but I was in the house alone a lot. And I was also ill. I had asthma quite a bit. So I'd be home for 6 weeks at a time from school. I would get out of touch with the kids and with the work. And school became very unpleasant for me. So, but I could sing. So, every now and then I would be in a choir or some kind of a situation where the kids in the school would hear me singing, "Oh, we like the way you sing," and the parents would call my mother and all this stuff. So this was something I put in my head that I could probably do, and then I started getting into the records that were in the house, and there were a lot of old-fashioned 78 RPM records. And so I would learn all those, and that and the record player, the television, and the radio became my world, and not schoolwork. And so that's how it started. And I would listen to that stuff on that radio all day long, or I'd listen to a record 100 times. And I think that's what made me like, the idea of making records later on, making one of those,
And I read that you bought your first guitar when you were 16. Is that true?
I think I was like 14, actually. I got a harmony guitar, an F-hole harmony guitar. And later on, I got a harmony folk-style guitar, somewhat like this Martin here, from a kid. And then I was able to get enough money to get a Martin guitar, which I've always played since I was 15.
And did you first start learning to play by ear? It sounds like you had a very keen
Well, I had a friend who lived nearby me, and his father was a disc jockey. New Rochelle, which is where I was born, which is outside of New York City. There was a lot of show business in New Rochelle in those days, in the 1950s. People on TV, people on Broadway. Everything was still in New York. And they lived in New Rochelle. They lived in Westchester, around there. So this friend of mine, his father was an announcer on the radio and had been an announcer on the Dorsey show in the 50s when Elvis was on the show. And he actually had a kinescope of Elvis. He'd run it with his projector, because usually you just see things once and that was all. So we'd see Elvis, doing flip, flop, fly or whatever he was doing. Anyway, one day my friend said, "I have a guitar and I'm taking lessons." And I thought, I didn't believe it. He said, "Come on over, I'll show you." So we went into his basement and he taught me. He said, "Look, you can just play this chord, E chord. And you could sing, 'That's all right, Mama, that's all right.'" So all I learned that day was an E chord and then an A and a B7th, and I was off to the races. That's the thing about the guitar. You don't have to play a lot.
And from there, did you get quite addicted to playing? Did you start practicing lots?
The guitar thing grew, and I was in a world of music now in my teens. This is 1957, 58, 56, all the great music that was around. My God, every week it was something, and it was all forever. Still hear it today.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, it was just amazing. And I discovered folk music at that time. At the same time, I was, into Elvis Presley and Buddy Holly and Gene Vincent and all the black groups. They call them doo-wop now. I don't like that term. They were rock and roll.
Yeah.
The Five Satins and the Flamingos. It was all part of rock and roll. So I was into everything. And then the folk thing came along with the political aspect to it, you know, and the songwriting and the songs from around the world. And I discovered a group called the Weavers, and they had a program called Folk Songs Around the World. So now I was getting albums that had songs from Russia and Indonesia and Korea and whatever. And my whole world was just opening up. And there were so many different rhythms that were not common, you know, different off rhythms and different types of Spanish guitar rhythms and so on that you wouldn't find anywhere on the radio. So I started learning new rhythm styles and picking styles on the guitar and expanding that bag of things that I was learning how to do.
And when did you first start writing, and you know, the lyrical element to it?
Well, I never really thought I could do anything. You know, I really was not encouraged by my parents were not the kind of people that, oh, Don, you can do that. You know, they would say, don't do that. You know, you don't really want to do that. That's the kind of thing. And so they would discourage you, actually, without meaning to. They were just not very confident people. And so one day I think I'd finally gotten into Woody Guthrie a little bit. And I said, wow, I see how you do that. You come up with one of these choruses, you know, and then you come up with a verse in the middle and you go back to the chorus. So that's the form of that, you know. So I think that made me think that maybe I could write something. And boy, that was fun, because I was putting all these influences that I had, rock and roll, pop music. I was really very into popular music. I mean, 1940s and 50s, the stuff I grew up with as a kid, Sinatra, Dinah Shore, you know, whoever it was, you know, that was singing on the radio in those days, big band music. And that stuff's sophisticated. Yeah, it's not three chords. That's very sophisticated. And I loved it. I could sing it, but of course I couldn't play it, you know. So I started writing some songs and incorporating my version of things that I heard into these songs, from popular music, early rock and roll, and folk music, such as I knew. And that's been those are the three areas that I understand, and that's what I write about primarily. And I don't remember, I was writing a whole lot of different things. Probably wrote 50 or 60 songs before I started to write the songs that ended up on my first record.
So you know, nowadays people talk about sort of writing, you know, like 100 tunes for an album and then selecting 10. But you know, before making what's considered to be a fantastic record, the Tapestry record,
well,
you'd only written 50 or 60 ever in your life.
I was really I don't know how to describe this, but every song that I wrote was different. I was very much into finding really unique melodies that I had never heard before that I would write. So I wasn't sounding like anybody else. I was very anxious not to sound like Buddy Holly or Elvis Presley or any of the folk people that I liked, although I was influenced by all that stuff.
You wanted to incorporate stuff.
Yeah,
make it your own.
And I tried to do a lot of things that later on I discarded because I realized that, you know, I couldn't really do it. And I ended up with me, which is, you know, the songs I write and the kind of style I play, and became, you know, what was comfortable for me to do. But it was a very long process. I mean, I've been doing this for 50 years, you know, and if you see me now, I mean, everything seems very easy, but it's only because it's been, you know, you do it a whole lot, and anything gets easier. And
part of that initial process during the 60s, you gigged a lot, didn't you? You played a lot of shows. You know, so say in an average year in the 60s, late 60s, how often would you be performing?
Well, the 60s were a very, very interesting time because of the Kennedy assassination. And the fact that a lot of conservative little white boys like myself suddenly became radicalized when they realized that the Kennedy assassination might have been an inside job of some sort, and then suddenly Vietnam happening. And we all became, a lot of us just turned against the government. And then there were a lot of songs being written all over the place. It was a great time and a very sad time because, in a sense, after Kennedy was assassinated, America lost its way, and I don't think it's ever found its way back. Its institutions didn't mean as much to people. And if you don't have things you believe in, you can't win wars. And you lose your integrity and your morality. You have to believe in something. This is the thing about Muslims. They believe in something. And they're coming. And we don't believe in a whole lot. And we're trying to defend ourselves against people that believe in something. And it's a very difficult thing to do. I think the most we can hope for is that if something happens, we start to believe in each other a little bit more, and maybe that'll be what happens. Because you can't go back to believing, in the church if you don't anymore, Or in Washington and your government. We believed in the government. The government was something we believed in. And after the Kennedy assassination, we did not like Lyndon Johnson. We did not like Gerald Ford. We did not like Richard Nixon. We did not only not like them, we hated them. And that was unprecedented in my life. You had Roosevelt for 13 years, and then you had Truman, and then you had Eisenhower, and everything was honky-dory. All of a sudden, now you're in the streets despising Lyndon Johnson and Richard Nixon and the government. So this laid a groundwork for songwriting that was way different than it had been before.
And do you still feel that sense of disillusionment?
Oh, definitely. I still do. Since that day, I don't trust anything that I see or hear from the government.
And do you still channel that into your writing now?
I have throughout the years. I've always written things. Not a lot, because it becomes a bore when you're always doing political songs and pointing fingers and getting angry and stuff. There's a time, once in a while, to say something or to say the right thing. But to go around all the time pontificating is a bore.
Yeah, it's good to focus on the music as well. I mean, I know you're channeling that content into the music, but I know that you like
the
to
Beatles
tour and you like to gig.
The Beatles were a big influence on me later on, not in a musical sense, but in the way you would go about music. And the Beatles would write all kinds of songs, but then occasionally they'd write kind of a political song or a song that was about people and what they should do or shouldn't do, And so I like that balance. I knew people like Pete Seeger, who every song was about the government or about, the environment or what's wrong with America, and it became boring after a while.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about Pete Seeger because I know that he was quite a mentor in many ways.
Yeah, he was. I've thought about him a lot in the years, and I would say that he was, in a sense, like Roosevelt. Roosevelt had a first-class temperament. He had a first-class temperament, almost a saint. He was a very, very good person, and he very much wanted the right things to happen for people, all people, not just rich people and not just middle-class people. Sometimes he took it too far, but I think that was his goal.
And what do you think he saw in you?
Well, we immediately, I had been writing him since I was in junior high school. And he would write me back, which was pretty amazing. And then years passed, and then in about 1968, I guess, I met him. by this time I was out of college and singing, and I got on a show. They asked me to come on a show to raise money for the Hudson River Sloop, and so I did that. And he was always looking for young people that were good, that he felt could do it, and so he latched on to me for a while, and then I made it really big, and we did a lot of things together, and helped his organization when I could, and was happy to do it. I just felt I was very fortunate that anybody liked me at all. I didn't really know what I was doing. I was just taking this journey and writing these songs, and things were happening.
But you were very persistent, it seems, from what I know, and from what I read something like the Tapestry record was rejected by labels 72 times.
Well, less than that. It was probably in the 30 range. It's grown over the years, but it felt like 70 times. Because every time, hurt, because I thought I had it together, and then they'd say, well, sorry, But
you didn't let your self-belief waver, and you kept going.
No, because this is what I wanted to do, and but it was a very unusual record, that Tapestry album, because you got the title songs about the environment. Then you've got a song called 3 Flights Up, where I'm playing guitar, and it's about looking into a building with 3 different flights and seeing these people, their lives, separate things that are going on, but they're actually connected in some way. And then, a song like And I Love You So, which popped out, which became a huge popular song. And another one, Castles in the Air, another very successful song. But then a bunch more that were very, very different. And that's one of the things that I've done that's kind of thrown people off the trail with me, is that I don't do anything twice. I don't do the same song twice. So they're always very different. Vincent is not like American Pie. American Pie is not like And I Love You So. Crossroads is nothing like Dreidel, so because I'm interested in variety, and I want to try,
lots of different influences as well.
Yeah, just, I want to do different things. Anything that occurs to me that seems like a good idea, if I like it, I'm following that.
And I don't think that was too much for them to handle initially?
It was too much. But fortunately, some commercial things squeaked through, and that made my reputation. And then when people would get the record and they get with it, they'd say, wow, this is way better than a normal commercial type of a record.
Because it wasn't made to be commercial. It was made because you wanted to do it from an artistic point of view.
I am not a commercial artist. I'm an eclectic artist of some sort. And I have had some commercial success. And I'm a singer first and a songwriter second. So when you call me a singer-songwriter, I take the singing part seriously. That's why I do songs like Since I Don't Have You, or Crying, or songs like that where you have to do some serious singing.
Yeah, and Crying, Roy Orbison, who is undoubtedly one of the best singers in the history of popular music, said that he preferred your version to his.
He did.
So how did that make you feel? Because he must have been an influence.
Well, I just do, I just keep doing what I think is right. I don't really look for any approval.
Yeah.
I honestly don't mean to say this way, but I really don't care what people think about me.
That's a good thing.
I don't operate in a way that was going to try to make you like me, or that's going to or I would like you to dislike me. I just try to seek the truth.
Try and be genuine
in my work, and if you like it, great. It's the best I have to offer, and if you don't, well, it's okay too.
Yeah. And so with Tapestry, which is obviously a great record, it achieved its success later on because of the American Pie album. Do you get sick and annoyed at people asking you about American Pie?
I don't get sick and annoyed because it's been the way it's always been. It's been such a big song, and people have always been so fascinated with it that I can't really blame them. It's just the way it turned out. And I was poor. I didn't have any money, and I became rich. So I've had a wonderful life. And it's because of that song. And it's brought attention to a lot of other songs. And I don't know whether, I just don't know how it would have worked out otherwise. It's the hand I was dealt.
Yeah.
And I just don't think when you've been poor, and I really was poor, I didn't have any money at all. I don't think that you should go around saying, "Oh, gee whiz, I'm worth millions now," but that song they keep asking me about all the time.
Yeah. I think
I'll answer the questions.
And when you cut that, or I guess when you wrote, you must have had an inkling when you wrote the lyrics. I don't know what order you wrote it in, but did you think, God, I'm really onto something?
No, I never thought I was onto anything ever about anything.
You just wanted to make art
yes.
that you like.
Yeah, I knew I'm looking for excitement, and I'm looking to catch emotion in a bottle. That's what I'm after. I want to have a feeling inside me, and I want to try to get it in that song. When I hear that song back, it gives me that feeling. And it could be all kinds of different feelings. It might be a sexy feeling, it might be an angry feeling, it might be a proud feeling. I might want to get a song that's enormous and like a grand song, like American Pie is a grand song. I wanted that. When I heard that back on the record, I said, I did it. I'm looking to get back to me what it is I feel inside. That's basically what I do, what I try to do. And there's so many different emotions, that you have about so many things. I didn't want to write This Land Is Your Land, or, Power and the Glory like Phil Oakes wrote, or America the Beautiful, or anything like that. I wanted a big song about America, but a whole different idea. And when I came up with this idea that music and politics flow, this is in my head, this is just in my head, flow forward parallel. So the music reflects the politics, and the politics reflects the music. And everywhere I would look, as I looked through the decades of music that I was very familiar with, I would see, well, it actually seems to be the way it is. Now you have a kind of a politics that is almost non-political. It doesn't really mean anything. And the music doesn't mean anything. The music reflects the spiritual nature of the society. We have a kind of a nihilistic society now. No one believes in anything. No one likes anything. No one has any respect for anything much. And the music shows that. And the guy who's in the White House shows that.
And do you think that the quality of music on the radio has deteriorated?
Oh, it doesn't exist as far as I can see. Music is not on the radio. There's some form of music-like sound, but it's not music to me.
Any lyrical content or any melody?
No, there was a show called Name That Tune back in the 50s. And by the fourth melody, people would go on the show, and by the fourth note, they would say, "Oh, that's Strangers in the Night." You think, da, 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 you know it right away. That's five notes. There's nothing on the radio you can name in 20 notes, almost. There's nothing there. It's a single note, or it's 3 or 4 notes repeated over and over again, with a chorus that's done over and over until until it's drummed into your head, or it makes you want to hang yourself. But it's not a hook, like a cool hook.
It's not the melody, and it's very sad to see.
There's no melody.
It's very sad to see some genres actually being created with a purpose of stripping music of melody, which seems to be...
The only guy that writes melodies, I suppose Paul Simon and Paul McCartney still write melodies. They know how to do it. I know how to do it. But I don't think that a lot of these groups out there, they really don't know how to write a melody. They have a couple of little hooks stitched together with some riffs, a lot of riffs. They're very cool, and the records are great, but they're not melodies. And the lyrics are not about anything much.
No.
It's very vague and vacant.
And do you feel like the quality of singing has gone down?
The quality of the playing has gone way up.
Playing has gone way up.
Yeah. Playing and the record making is phenomenal. Guitar playing, drumming, bass playing, man. I mean, those guys that's going through the roof.
Yeah.
Everything. That's tremendous. The use of, computers and keyboards, and it's absolutely amazing.
Makes it harder.
Absolutely amazing. And the engineering on these records, the low end, and the way they're able to get everything in, and you could hear the words, but the bottom is enormous, and the guitars are in your face, and the drums are right there. It's unbelievable.
And are you still passionate about continuing to write and record music? I know you continue.
Yeah, I'm always thinking about. I'm about starting now to think about getting some more music together for something. I don't know. It'll take me forever, but I get started. I put an album out, Botanical Gardens, and I have another album out of songs I didn't write that I like to do. And I'll put that out probably this year. And during the year, I'll start thinking about what I want to do. I'll be into 20-some records I've got out. And if you count live records and best ofs, there's probably 40 albums out there.
Yeah. And what do you prefer doing? Studio or live, or are both just so totally different and do you think you'll continue doing both indefinitely?
The thing I like to do is sing for audiences and travel. I like to ramble, go places and see things and move on. I like to sing for a night and move on.
Yeah, so proper working musician.
Yeah, I like to move on. I'm a rambler. I don't like to stay too long in one place. I find the recording studio to be very difficult because you have to go and hear the song over and over and over. Some people love that, but I get tired of it, And you start hearing things that aren't there, and you start, you lose it. A lot of times I'll hear it, a year later, I say, oh, geez, why didn't I notice that, And I don't like that. You put so much into it to still not get it exactly the way you think it should be. It's frustrating.
Yeah. How many shows are you doing a year at the moment?
We did 85 this year. I did 50 overseas and 35, I guess, in the United States.
And this year, you're going to be playing a lot?
This year it'll be the same thing. I'm going to be in Australia and the Far East. I'm coming back to Europe. I'm doing some festivals at the end of the summer, and I'll be all over the United States from January right on through.
And a lot of your guys in the band, they've been with you for a while.
Yes, 20, 30 years.
And do you find you don't change things up because you value their friendship and their playing, or do you like to gel as a unit? Both?
It's a great band, and it's only 4 guys, but they can do anything. And most of my songs are written off the guitar, so I'm able to, get everything I want with these guys.
Yeah. I saw a clip of you guys playing at Glastonbury, and it was a fantastic performance. Went down really well. Was that one of the recent highlights? Would you say live?
It was a highlight, yes. Stagecoach was it the couple of years later we did, and that was a big show. But then traveling around, like I sang in Berlin, which was very interesting this year. It's what I like to do.
Yeah.
And I really wouldn't like to stop. I think if I stopped, it wouldn't be good for me.
None of these farewell tour announcents, they seem to be.
I don't think so.
They seem to be quite prevalent at the moment among your contemporaries.
Yeah, I'm gonna hang in there. Probably die on stage.
Yeah, I like that attitude. Very good. And so obviously you've written and recorded some songs that have almost become they've become like national treasures. But and we all know what songs those are, and people are going to be listening to them somewhere in the world right now, and probably on definitely on every continent. But what about some tunes that you would personally highlight as being really underrated that people should actually go out there and yours?
On this new album, there are a number of things. One's called Ain't She a Honey, which I think is a great record and a great little song. It's just a fun song.
And are you very proud of the Botanical Gardens?
That's on Botanical Gardens. There are a number of songs on Botanical Gardens. I think Prime Time is underrated, the song Prime Time. I do that in the show. The reason why I think it's underrated is that in the late 70s, I saw America as a game show. And I also saw music becoming more mechanical. And this is before, G.E. Smith and people who were, doing the sort of the Devo thing.
Yeah.
And I just saw it, and I wrote this song. This is life. This is prime time. This is living in the USA life, prime time, living the American way. I think that song would make a great rap song for some rapper to pick up, take the lyrics, take the spirit of the lyrics, and then come to that chorus.